Boys and girls, we have a new reading strategy. It is monitor and clarify. Let's look at our objectives associated with this reading strategy. We are learning to monitor understanding of text and clarify/reread as needed. Let's take a look at when we would monitor and clarify. Good readers monitor and clarify during reading. This is a strategy that you implement when your book is open and you are actively reading a text. So now that we know the strategy, we're going to dive into what it's called and when we use this strategy. Let's go ahead and really understand what it means to monitor, what it means to clarify, and why we do these two things while reading. So what is this? When you monitor, you pay close attention to your understanding of individual words as well as ideas. You realize when you do not understand something. On my next slide, let's take a look at this illustration. We have a little girl reading a text in the corner here. Her face is looking puzzled. Her thought bubbles show confusion. She is aware that she is not understanding the text right now. The little girl on the right is reading a text. The book is open. She's smiling, she's engaged, and she has a light bulb going off in her head. She is aware that she is understanding the text. So once more, to self-monitor is to know or be aware of when you do or do not understand what you're reading. Well, why do we do this? Well, we monitor to check understanding of what we have read. And if you realize you're puzzled or confused like that little girl in the previous slide, then you're going to want to clarify. So what is this when you clarify? If something does not make sense, stop to clarify it or make it clear. You can clarify by using many fix-up strategies. So what are fix-up strategies? Well, they're the tools and steps that readers take when they do not understand a word, passage, or entire text. We're going to jump into some really great fix-up strategies to help you clarify and understand what you're reading. And why do we clarify? To find out why we haven't understood what we read and to adjust comprehension. I know there's been many times that I was reading a text and had no idea what was going on. Well, it's important to understand what's going on, so I had to clarify. Okay, we know what monitoring means. It means to be aware of your understanding of a text. We know what clarify means. It means to use a fix-up strategy to understand during reading. But how do I do these two things during reading? Well, first, you read and pay attention to the text. Second, you realize you are confused, right? You hit a spot in the text that you do not understand. Third, you pick a trick or a fix-up strategy to get rid of your confusion. Now I know what you're thinking. Miss Pipitone, well, what trick can I use? What fix-up strategy can I use? Well, no worries. I'm going to show you guys and describe some. Here's a trick to help. Reread or read ahead. There might be details that you missed or details that come later that will help you understand more. So rereading just means to go back maybe to the beginning of a page, maybe to the page before, and read it again, looking for specific information that you were confused about. And reading ahead is just to continue forward into the text. Maybe read a couple more sentences or one more paragraph. As you read ahead, you might gain more details to fully understand. So this is just one fix-up strategy to help you. Another trick to help or fix up strategy is adjusting your reading rate. Slowing down can really help you focus on details. To adjust your reading rate is to slow your reading or speed up your reading. I would suggest that if you're confused, you would slow down a little bit. Kind of like when driving a car, going down into first gear. The slowest reading that you can do to help you memorize and understand. As you start to memorize and understand, you can speed up your reading into second gear to learn more material, third gear, which is your normal reading pace, or even fourth gear, which is the fastest reading you do to skim and scan. When you're reading a new text, you should really be between first gear, second gear, or third gear, slowing down and speeding up as you find that you need it. Here's another trick or fix-up strategy. Create mental pictures of the characters, setting, events, or details. Sometimes you should close your eyes to imagine the story as a movie in your mind while reading. If you could create this movie in your head, you'll better understand what you're reading. Here's another one. Use your background knowledge to help you understand how or why something happened. The background knowledge that we have in our brains already is called schema, and this is knowledge that you've had in your brain because of your life experiences. So when you use schema, you use the experiences that you have, the information that you already know, you put it together with what you're reading to better make sense of the text. Another trick to help or fix up strategy is looking for clues. Guys, take advantage of your text features, your photographs, illustrations, diagrams, and charts. When you use these text features, you examine them to help you gain more understanding of the text. This is especially helpful for informational text with diagrams, captions, bold words, headings, and illustrations can help you in fiction text because you might have trouble creating that mental image in your head, but the image is already on the page for you to look at. Another fix-up strategy is asking yourself questions about the text. Good readers ask questions to themselves before, during, and after reading in order to make sense of what they read. Maybe you're asking yourself, wait, who is in this situation right now? What is happening? Where are they? When did this happen? And why did this happen? Ask yourself these questions in your head and see if you can answer them in your head. Or even pick a partner to talk about the text with, an adult at home or your teacher. Another fix-up strategy is using context clues to figure out the meaning of a new word or phrase. So when you use context clues, you use the words and phrases around a word that you don't know to help you figure it out and figure out what it means. Let's practice. I'm going to reread page 52 and show you how I would monitor and clarify during my reading. I'm going to show you when I was confused when I read. I'm going to explain the fix-up strategy that I used, and then I'm going to tell you what I now understand after using my fix-up strategy. I'm on page 52 of Because of Winn-Dixie, at the very beginning. And of course, my brothers and I had each other. We three stuck together like the pages in a brand new book. And being normal young children, we were almost always up to something. Our best prank involved a fur piece that belonged to our grandmother. Hold on, guys. I'm confused. What is a fur piece? This is what I'm confused about. On page 52, I did not understand what the author meant by a prank involving a fur piece that belonged to their grandmother. All right, guys, I think I'm gonna have to use a fix-up strategy of reading ahead to kind of understand. I'm gonna read the next couple sentences. It looked almost alive with its tiny feet and little head and gleaming glass eyes. So every once in a while, in the waning light of evening, we'd tie that fur piece to a stick, and hiding behind the hedge in the front of our house, we would dangle it in front of an unsuspecting passerby. Boy, you could hear the screams of fright all across the neighborhood. Okay, so guys, I read ahead to understand that this piece looks like an animal. It's got little beady eyes, it's got feet, and it's furry. But I'm also going to use another fix-up strategy of schema. I know in my brain already that piece could also be another word for a piece of clothing. So I use the read ahead strategy to find a description of the fur piece. I also use my schema to understand what a piece could be. Putting all of this information together, I now understand that the fur piece was a small piece of something that looked like an animal. It had feet, a head, and glass eyes. I already knew that clothing items can sometimes be called pieces. So I now know that this fur piece was a clothing item that looked like an animal. Wow, that was a great way to use our monitor and clarify. Let me try monitoring and clarifying with another part of the text. I'm going to reread page 58 and show how I would monitor and clarify here. I'll show you when I was confused, the fix-up strategy that I used, and how I understand now. Here we go, I'm reading at the top of page 58. In the coming years, there would be other reminders of the cruel system called segregation that sought to keep Black people down. But it was Daddy who showed ML and AD and me how to speak out against hatred and bigotry and stand up for what's right. Daddy was the minister at Ebenezer Baptist Church, and after losing our playmates when ML, AD, and I heard our father speak from his pulpit, his words held new meaning. And Daddy practiced what he preached. He always stood up for himself when confronted with hatred and bigotry, and each day he shared his encounters at the dinner table. When a shoe salesman told Daddy and ML that he'd only serve them in the back of the store because they were Black, Daddy took ML somewhere else to buy new shoes. Another time, a police officer pulled Daddy over and called him boy. Daddy pointed to ML sitting next to him in the car and said, "This is a boy. I am a man, and until you call me one, I will not listen to you." These stories were as nourishing as the food that was set before us. Okay, boys and girls, I'm a little confused reading this page. I don't understand what the author means when he says that Daddy shared at the dinner table, that the stories Daddy shared at the dinner table were as nourishing as the food on the table. How can stories be nourishing like food? I'm confused. The fix-up strategy I'm going to do is reread and adjust my reading rate. I'm going to read the sentence slower, and I'm also going to use my schema to understand possible meanings. And schema, again, is the information you have in the back of your head. So I'm going to reread from about the middle of the page. I'm going to read nice and slow. When a shoe salesman told Daddy and ML that he'd only serve them in the back of the store because they were Black, Daddy took ML somewhere else to buy new shoes. Okay, so this is one of Daddy's stories, buying a shoe, not being able to buy a shoe because of his skin color, and deciding to go somewhere else. Okay, I'm going to keep reading, nice and slow. Another time, a police officer pulled Daddy over and called him boy. Daddy pointed to ML, sitting next to him in the car, and said, "This is a boy. I am a man, and until you call me one, I will not listen to you." So this is another example of Daddy's stories where he was being disrespected because of his skin color and stood up for himself. Now I'm going to reread the last sentence. These stories were as nourishing as the food that was set before us. Nourishing means filling, almost like giving you nutrients. Food can give you nutrients, right? So now I'm going to put this together. The stories that Daddy was telling were not about filling people with nutrients, and they're definitely not eating the stories. But I think what the author means is that hearing the stories about how ML's father stood up for himself made the family stronger. Didn't fill them with nutrients, but filled them with strength. In the same way that eating food could fill you with nutrients to make you stronger. That makes more sense. So now it is your turn. On Google Classroom, you'll complete this worksheet. I'll go ahead and read the directions. Read the story provided. There will be a link for you on Google Classroom to read a story. Give 2 examples where you had to monitor and clarify to better comprehend or understand the text. Use the example for help. Remember, monitoring means you pay close attention to your reading and realize when you are confused. Clarifying means you use any of these fix-up strategies to understand. These include reread, read ahead, adjust reading rate, create mental images, use schema or background knowledge, use text features, use context clues, or ask questions. I put my example in here from page 52 to help you, and I want you to give me 2 examples of when you were confused, the fix-up strategy you used to help, and what you now understand. Happy reading!